Hey guys, tonight we walk into a storm. Not just any storm, the kind that feels alive. It's July 10th, 1856, and the sky over the small village of Smiljan, in what is now Croatia, is tearing itself apart. Lightning cracks like divine punctuation. Rain lashes the earth, and in a small candlelit room, a woman screams. In her arms, a newborn child blinks for the first time as a bolt of lightning explodes outside, turning night into day. The midwife gasps. She says, "This will be a child of darkness." His mother, trembling but unbroken, whispers, "No, of light." That child is you, or at least, for tonight, you walk in his skin. Nikola Tesla, born in a thunderstorm, born to chase the very force that announced his arrival. You probably won't survive this story, not because it's dangerous, but because it demands something from you. Imagination, empathy, and a little electricity in your veins. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it right now? Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air outside still smells of ozone and rain. You can almost taste it. The tiny village sleeps again, but inside that farmhouse, something impossible has arrived. Tesla's mother, Duka, is not an ordinary woman. She's the kind who weaves and invents, without formal schooling, a natural engineer of the household. His father, Milutin, is a stern Serbian Orthodox priest with the voice of a thunderclap and the mind of a poet. Between them, faith and logic collide, a quiet echo of the storm that forged their son. As a child, you, Tesla, see the world differently. You don't just see a stream. You see its rhythm, the pulsing pattern of energy moving through it. You stare at the gears of a mill and imagine invisible currents turning inside your own mind. Once, you touch a cat and feel static crackle between your fingers, and it feels like a secret handshake from the universe. The villagers whisper that you're strange. They're not wrong. You calculate lightning strikes for fun, memorize whole books, and solve equations in your head before you can properly write them down. When your brother Dane dies in a riding accident, some say you saw his ghost that night. Something fractures. The light dims. You start having visions, flashes of light before your eyes that no one else can see. Some call it madness. You call it imagination made visible. Historians still argue whether those visions were a sign of genius or the early tremors of obsession. Maybe both. In school, you're the boy who refuses to blink. Teachers punish you for daydreaming, but you're not dreaming, you're building. You imagine machines that could spin forever without fuel. You invent water wheels in your notebook that could power whole villages. When you talk about these things, adults laugh kindly, then nervously, the way people do when they sense they're standing near a mind they'll never fully understand. There's a story your mother tells. Once, during a thunderstorm, you stand by the window, hand pressed to the glass, eyes wide with awe. You whisper, "I will capture this one day." She smiles and says nothing. Mothers of visionaries always know when to let silence teach. You grow in the rhythm of the countryside church bells, horse hooves, the hiss of rain. But in your mind, the storm never ends. You feel electricity not as an element, but as a language. You think of it as music, a song the universe hums beneath everything living and dead. By the time you're a teenager, that song grows louder. You build your first inventions. Tiny turbines, water clocks, and rudimentary motors that spin with eerie smoothness. You don't have tools, so you use what's around you: tin, wire, wood, imagination. One teacher writes that you see mathematics and lightning and divinity in numbers. Another mutters that you're possessed by something he can't explain. Both are right. Even your dreams are electrical. You dream of lights that need no flame, of voices carried through the air, of the earth itself humming like a great conductor. When you wake, you try to draw them, to understand the secret symmetry between nature and machine. But it's not easy being a storm in a world built for candlelight. The people around you, even your father, urge you toward the priesthood, not the laboratory. He wants you to follow the family path, to tend to souls instead of sparks. You love him, but deep down you know your pulpit will not be a church. It will be a laboratory floor that glows with blue fire. Still, destiny has a sense of humor. You fall deathly ill around this time, cholera. The fever takes you close to the edge. For 9 months, you lie pale and trembling, caught between life and static. The priest comes. Your father prays. The doctors give up. But then your father, desperate, whispers, "If you recover, I'll let you study engineering." And just like that, as if fate flipped a switch, the fever breaks. You rise again thinner, quieter, but filled with an electric hunger. The storm inside you isn't done yet. It's only learning how to listen. You're standing in the damp grass of the mountain slopes above Gospic now, where mist wraps the trees like breath on glass. You're barely 16, your mind overflowing with invisible blueprints. The world feels small, too small for what hums in your skull. When you look at rivers, you don't see water. You see energy waiting to be freed. When you look at people, you see circuits, sparks leaping between eyes, words as conductors of thought. Everything feels alive. Everything hums. The villagers call you the boy who stares at thunder. They're not wrong. You wander for hours in storms, soaked and shivering, trying to feel what the lightning feels. You keep notebooks full of impossible diagrams, perpetual motion wheels, machines that drink light, sketches of invisible waves pulsing through air. It's not ambition that drives you, it's compulsion. The same kind that makes the sea crash into cliffs, again and again, even though it never wins. You build a small windmill that powers a toy motor. It spins once briefly before burning itself out. You don't care. Failure, to you, is just another form of data. Later, you'll say, "I do not think you can name many great inventions that have been made by married men." That's because you've already chosen your first and only love, the electric dream. Your father disapproves. He wants you to write sermons, not schematics. But your mother smiles quietly, threading wire through her fingers like she's weaving your destiny. She tells you stories of her own inventions, water pumps, egg beaters, spinning tools, and says, "Ideas are gifts, Nikola. Never throw away a gift, even if it frightens people." You remember that sentence for the rest of your life? One night, lightning hits a tree near your home. The trunk bursts open, and fire dances through the rain. Everyone runs. You stay. You walk toward it barefoot, rain-soaked, and you swear you see shapes moving in the fire. Circuits, waves, a secret language only you understand. That's when you decide. You won't just study electricity, you'll speak it. Historians still argue whether Tesla's fascination with light was scientific or spiritual. Some say he saw in it the fingerprints of God. Others think he simply saw a force that obeyed no human master. Maybe it was both. To him, divinity was not in scripture, it was in physics. You grow obsessed with harnessing invisible things. You play with water wheels, magnets, and static charge until your hair permanently defies gravity, an early sign of your aesthetic commitment to chaos. At night, you lie awake, imagining cities lit without fire, machines that hum without smoke, power that flows like thought itself. You whisper, "I will make the darkness obey." Your voice trembles, but not from fear, from voltage. By the time you reach your late teens, your curiosity has begun to outgrow your body. You hardly eat, rarely sleep. Your friends joke that you survive on starlight. They're not far off. You develop strange habits, counting steps, measuring the volume of soup before drinking it, avoiding pearls because their geometry offends you. Obsession is your religion now, and numbers are your hymns. When you finally leave home to study engineering, it feels like stepping out of the womb of the world. You're headed to Graz, then Prague cities buzzing with machines and ideas. You clutch your notebooks, your dreams, and a small crucifix from your mother. The train smells of coal and metal, a new kind of thunder. You lean your head against the window, watching lightning fork across the night sky. You smile faintly. You've always known where you were headed. You were just waiting for the world to catch up. The next morning, you arrive at a city that never sleeps. Steam whistles, wheels shriek, sparks dance between wires overhead. You can smell ozone, your favorite perfume. For the first time, you feel you belong somewhere. The future is here, and it hums in your bones. But in this moment, standing on a cobbled street between gas lamps and carriages, you don't realize something yet. Genius has a terrible appetite. It will feed you visions, yes, but it will also take your warmth, your peace, your sanity. It's a fair trade, though. Every god demands a sacrifice. You look up at a streetlight flickering in the drizzle, and for a split second, you imagine a world where no flame ever dies, only light, endless and clean, humming across continents. You whisper to yourself, dreams of light, and walk on. The storm follows quietly, step by step. The workshop at the Polytechnic hums like a hive. You smell oil, metal, and ozone, your kind of incense. Machines clatter, pistons rise and fall, and steam curls up like ghosts released from their cages. You're 20, maybe 21, but you look older, or maybe just more haunted. You spend your nights hunched over sketches, eyes bloodshot, murmuring to yourself about rotating magnetic fields and infinite motion. Your classmates think you're brilliant. Your professors think you're dangerous. You don't argue with either. Once, a teacher demonstrates a new invention, a Gram dynamo. The coils spin, the sparks fly, and something inside you catches fire. But you notice a flaw: resistance, inefficiency. You can't stop thinking about it. For days, you skip meals and lectures, lost in diagrams of spinning circles that feed one another. One night, you scribble the words, "No commutator, pure alternating current," and laugh out loud. The janitor crosses himself. Historians still argue whether this was the true beginning of Tesla's alternating current vision, or just one of his many lightning flashes of intuition. But if you were there, you'd know it felt like a revelation, not a calculation. When you sleep, your dreams are mechanical. Cogs turn inside. Cogs, magnetic lines curve through dark space. Light flows like blood through invisible veins. You wake, drenched in sweat, muttering about machines that think like nature. Your professors start to avoid you. One warns, "Tesla, you're chasing phantoms." You smile thinly. "Phantoms," you reply, "are just realities waiting to be understood." You start building crude models at first. Wood, copper wire, whatever you can steal or borrow. You wind coils by candlelight, watching the shadows spin on the walls like they're part of the mechanism. One night, you touch the wire and feel a jolt run through your arm. Not painful, just awakening. You whisper, "Hello, old friend," to the current. It's a private joke between you and the universe. Your mind begins to play tricks. You see patterns in smoke, equations in the way dust settles on a desk. A friend finds you one evening talking to the air. When asked what you're doing, you answer, "Explaining myself to the magnetic field." They laugh. You don't. When your father dies, something in you snaps quietly. You stop writing home. You stop smiling. The only thing that matters now is the hum, the invisible pulse of energy that seems to whisper your name. You enroll briefly in Prague, but money runs out before the first semester ends. You can't afford textbooks, so you haunt libraries. You read everything physics, poetry, philosophy. You learn languages like other people collect coins. By now, you speak nearly a dozen, though you barely speak to anyone. You take a job in Budapest, repairing telegraph lines. It's menial, but you don't care. Every wire you fix feels like an extension of your nerves. You start to imagine the whole world as a network of invisible veins, ready to pulse with power, if only someone could find the right rhythm. One morning, you collapse in the street. Your body finally rebels against the sleeplessness, the hunger, the overclocked mind. The world dissolves into white light. When you wake, you're in a hospital bed. The doctor calls it nervous exhaustion. You call it tuning. You believe your mind is simply adjusting to a higher frequency, and maybe it is. Because not long after, while walking through a park at dusk, reciting a passage from Faust, it happens. You pause mid-verse, look at the setting sun, and in your mind's eye, no, in your whole being you see it. The motor, the one that will change everything. You drop your walking stick, draw diagrams in the dust, muttering about rotating magnetic fields, alternating current, self-sustaining motion. Your friend looks at you like you've gone mad. You don't care. You've finally seen the ghost, and it's beautiful. Years later, when you tell this story, you'll say, "The idea came like a flash of lightning, and in an instant, the truth was revealed." But that's later. For now, you're still just a young man talking to the air, sketching the future in dirt, while the city hums around you, unaware that the century just changed hands. You're standing on a crowded train platform in Vienna, coat frayed, shoes muddy, clutching a notebook full of equations that could power a world you can't yet afford to live in. The sky is bruised gray, the kind that makes every breath taste like iron. You have one suitcase, one dream, and no ticket to anywhere that wants you. You're still that boy from the storm, but now the thunder lives inside your skull. The universities have closed their doors to you. Your money's gone. Your health's in pieces. You drift from city to city, Graz, Prague, Budapest, then Paris, taking odd jobs, repairing machines for telegraph companies. The hum of current is your only lullaby. At night, you eat stale bread and sketch the same motor again and again, trying to fix flaws no one else can even see. You start to imagine the motor, not as a machine, but as a heartbeat, a rhythm that could make the entire planet breathe in sync. You talk about it to anyone who'll listen. Most don't. Some laugh. One man, a supervisor, tells you, "Tesla, if alternating current worked, someone else would have done it already." You nod politely, then spend the next 3 nights awake, proving him wrong in your head. You become a ghost in your own life. The cafes, the factories, the trams, they all blur into a sequence of moving parts. You watch the world from behind your eyes, like a machine observing its creator. Sometimes you forget to eat. Sometimes you forget to stop thinking. Historians still argue whether this was the period that broke Tesla or forged him. Was it hardship that refined his genius, or the first sign that his mind was already unraveling? They'll never agree. But if you were there, you'd know it wasn't tragedy. It was transformation. You spend a few months in Paris, working for the Continental Edison Company. Yes, that Edison. You fix dynamos and motors, impressing everyone with your precision and manic efficiency. Your co-workers nickname you the Machine. You take it as a compliment. When they sleep, you redesign circuits in your dreams. One afternoon, while repairing a generator, you discover a flaw in its magnetic alignment. You correct it instinctively, not on paper, but in your head. The machine hums perfectly. The supervisor stares at you like he's seen witchcraft. "How did you know that would work?" he asks. You shrug. "The current told me. That line follows you for life." Still, you're not happy. The European world of invention is small and cruel, obsessed with imitation, not imagination. Every time you present your designs, people nod politely and change the subject. You realize you'll need a new stage, one big enough for lightning itself. That's when you hear whispers of America. A place where the streets are lit with ambition, where machines roar and inventors become legends. A place where Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park, has built empires out of copper wire and pure stubbornness. You smile faintly. Wizard, you think. Let's see how he handles a storm. You sell your possessions, borrow money, and buy a single ticket on a ship to New York. You pack your notebooks, a few tools, and a letter of recommendation from Charles Batchelor, Edison's trusted associate that reads, "My dear Edison, I know two great men. One is you. The other is this young man." It's a good line. It'll get you in the door. But no one warns you what the door leads to. The voyage is rough. The sea snarls like a living thing. You stand on deck every night, watching lightning flicker across the horizon, whispering calculations into the wind. You're seasick, hungry, and half certain you'll die before seeing land, but you can't stop smiling. You can feel the future ahead, electric, vast, waiting. When the Statue of Liberty finally appears through the fog, you don't see freedom. You see opportunity, an unfinished circuit begging for completion. The skyline of Manhattan glows faintly in the distance, each gas lamp a tiny heartbeat of light. You whisper. Soon, you step onto American soil with 4 cents in your pocket, a handful of dreams, and a mind wired for miracles. You're 28, unknown, unprotected, and utterly unstoppable. That night, you find a cheap room in a boarding house and collapse on a bed that smells like rust and rain. Through the window, you see a faint flicker, lightning, far off over the Atlantic, as if the storm that birthed you has followed across oceans. You smile. Still here, you murmur to it. The thunder doesn't answer, but you know it's listening. The air in New York tastes like smoke and ambition. Steam hisses from grates, carriage wheels rattle against cobblestone, and skyscrapers half-built, half-dreamed scrape at the gray November sky. It's 1884, and you've arrived in the heart of invention's empire. The streets buzz with promise, but to you, they sound like a poorly tuned machine. Too loud, too chaotic, no rhythm. You've come to fix that. You walk up Broadway in a threadbare coat, notebook clutched under your arm, searching for the one man whose name hums through every workshop and paper headline. Thomas Alva Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park. The man who trapped light in glass and sold it to the world. You admire him, and you're ready to surpass him, though you don't yet know the price of trying. At last, you stand before his offices. The sign reads, Edison Machine Works. Inside, the air is heavy with metal, oil, and sweat. Dozens of engineers swarm over glowing coils and humming dynamos, their faces lit by orange lamps. The hum of electricity fills your chest like a hymn. You take a breath, straighten your tie, and step into history. They almost throw you out. You look too thin, too foreign, too intense. But you hand them your letter bachelor's, and suddenly, the room shifts. Moments later, you're standing before Edison himself. The man whose name is already legend. His sleeves are rolled up, his hands dark with grease, his eyes sharp and suspicious. "So," he says, voice low, gravelly, "you're the guy who can fix my motors." You nod. "Yes, sir. I can make them better." He studies you for a long moment. Then he laughs that rough, honest American laugh that sounds like a hammer on metal. "All right, Mr. Tesla. Let's see if lightning can outsmart sweat. You work for 20 hours a day. No exaggeration. The others clock out. You don't. You rebuild dynamos, correct designs, and improve the efficiency of his direct current systems by nearly 20%. You sleep on benches, eat nothing but bread and coffee, and write new equations on scrap paper during breaks. You're not just fixing machines, you're dreaming through them. Historians still argue what Tesla really thought of Edison. Some say he revered him as a mentor. Others claim he despised him, a man of crude instincts in a divine art. The truth is probably somewhere between awe and irritation. You admired Edison's grit, but pitied his blindness. You once said, if Edison had to find a needle in a haystack, he would proceed to examine straw after straw until he found the object of his search. You, in contrast, would imagine a magnet. One night, Edison offers you a challenge. Redesign his entire DC generator system to make it more efficient. Do it, he grins, and there's $50,000 in it for you. You nod, shake his hand, and vanish into work. Months pass. You do it. You improve everything. You make his empire hum smoother than ever. When you remind him of the promised reward, he laughs again. Tesla, he says, you don't understand our American humor. Something inside you dies that day. Maybe it's respect. Maybe it's innocence. You quit on the spot. Walk out with nothing but your hat and your pride. For weeks, you wander New York, penniless and furious, doing manual labor just to survive, digging ditches, hauling pipes. You, the man who sees the future, are now knee-deep in mud for $2 a day. But the storm doesn't end there. You start talking again about your alternating current system, your vision of electricity that flows like breath, effortless and infinite. Everyone laughs. Too dangerous, they say, too impractical. Edison calls it the current of death. You know better. You've seen it work in your mind, in your bones. It's not death, it's balance. Still, doubt is a cruel thing. Nights blur into each other, empty stomach, trembling hands, mind flickering between genius and despair. You write in your journal, the present is theirs. The future, for which I really work, is mine. And then, just when the darkness feels permanent, a small miracle, a meeting, a man named Alfred S. Brown introduces you to an investor named Charles Peck. They listen, really listen to your ideas. They see the spark. Together, they fund your first laboratory on South 5th Avenue. You finally have tools, coils, copper, glass, a space to make the invisible visible. When you power up your first alternating current motor, it hums like the sigh of creation itself. You laugh, tears stinging your eyes. Hello again, old friend, you whisper to the current. The storm that once frightened the world is now your partner. And somewhere, across town, Thomas Edison frowns into the glow of his lamps, the wizard, sensing that a new kind of magic has just arrived. You wake to the smell of oil and sawdust, the floor beneath you littered with copper filings and half-finished coils. The lab on South 5th Avenue hums with restless promise, your first true kingdom outside. New York growls like a living animal. But in here, it's just you, your machines, and the faint crackle of invisible waves. Your alternating current motor spins for the first time in public demonstration. Smooth, silent, self-sustaining, elegant, where Edison's machines roar like iron beasts. The gathered engineers stare as if you've summoned a ghost. You smile, always quietly, always a little sad. You've spent so long talking to lightning. It's strange to hear people listen. Word spreads fast. A man named George Westinghouse walks into your life, a practical genius, a builder of railroads and systems. He sees in your invention not madness, but momentum. "I'll buy your patents," he says, "and I'll give you a lab to build whatever you can dream." You hesitate. Money has never been your language, but vision is. You shake his hand. That handshake, historians later say, may have changed the course of human civilization. Together, you and Westinghouse form a partnership that turns the world electric. Alternating current, your current starts spreading from city to city like wildfire. Power lines stretch over rooftops, transformers hum like mechanical beehives, and street lamps flicker to life in places that once drowned in darkness. For the first time, you see your dreams shining on faces that will never know your name. Still, nothing about progress is peaceful. Edison fights back with fury. He floods newspapers with warnings about the dangers of alternating current, calls it unsafe, unholy. He even stages public electrocutions of animals to prove his point dogs, horses, once even an elephant. The crowd gasps. The reporters scribble. And somewhere behind the headlines, you stare into the glow and whisper, "We're killing wonder to sell fear." Historians still argue whether Edison's war of currents was a business strategy or an ethical panic. But you already know the truth, it's neither. It's envy made visible. You spend your nights building things no one asked for. Induction coils, wireless lamps, resonant circuits that sing in frequencies no human ear can hear. Sometimes, you lie on the lab floor, eyes closed, feeling the hum of the machines through the concrete, a kind of communion. You swear you can hear patterns in the static. Sometimes, you even hear voices. Friends worry. You smile, the way men smile when they know they've stepped too close to a god. Westinghouse, practical as ever, urges you to rest. "You're going to burn out, Nikola." You shake your head. "I'm not burning," you say softly. "I'm transmitting." Soon, the inevitable confrontation comes the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. Edison's direct current systems dominate the bidding. Westinghouse is on the brink of collapse. But you, stubborn and unshakable, offer a cheaper, cleaner solution: alternating current. Against all odds, you win. The night the fair opens, the world witnesses what you've seen in your head since childhood. Over 200,000 light bulbs blaze to life at once, the entire city of white towers and marble reflected in a lake of gold. The crowd gasps. Some cry. Some fall silent, hands over hearts. You stand at the center, under a canopy of glowing filaments, arms folded, watching your dream bloom across the sky. Somewhere in the crowd, Edison walks away early. You don't notice. The newspapers call you the Wizard of the Westinghouse Company. The phrase makes you laugh. You've never felt less human, more hollow, more luminous. Later that night, you find a quiet corner of the fairgrounds, far from the applause. The air smells of rain and ozone, your oldest companions. You lift a finger toward the clouds and whisper, "It's working." The sky flashes once in reply, distant but real. You're no longer the boy who wanted to talk to lightning. Now, lightning listens. You wake before dawn, the city still asleep. Rain whispering against the windows of your New York laboratory. The light from your coils flickers over blueprints scattered like constellations across your desk. Each spark feels alive, like a heartbeat you've designed. You barely notice your hands trembling. Sleep hasn't visited you in 3 days, but invention has, and that's the better company. Outside, the war of currents rages on. Edison's direct current still stalks newspapers, claiming moral superiority, while your alternating current, efficient, elegant, invisible, spreads through the veins of America. Every transformer raised, every lamp lit, feels like a victory of reason over noise. You call it harmony. Edison calls it heresy, but you've stopped fighting with words. You fight with light. The partnership with Westinghouse deepens, your laboratories glowing like small stars. Investors visit and leave stunned. You demonstrate electricity with the showmanship of a magician, sparks bursting from your fingertips, bulbs glowing in your palms. One evening, in front of journalists, you pass high-frequency current through your own body to light a bulb in your hand. See? You say softly, smiling through the hiss. The current of light. The crowd gasps. Someone faints. Someone else claps. You bow. Historians still debate whether you were a showman or a prophet. Whether those demonstrations were marketing or mysticism. The answer, of course, is both. Your fame grows. You dine with Mark Twain, who adores your intellect almost as much as he fears your machines. He once asks if your oscillating platform can cure his chronic constipation. You let him stand on it, flip the switch, and nearly throw him through the ceiling. Twain laughs until he cries and then rushes off to the bathroom, miraculously cured. You mark it down as an unintended success in therapeutic vibration. The newspapers crown you the wizard of electricity. Crowds follow you through the streets. Your name becomes mythic. Children imagine you harnessing storms, summoning thunder with a flick of your wrist. You smile politely, but inside, you're already somewhere else. You're dreaming of Niagara Falls. That thunderous torrent of water has called to you since childhood, when you told your uncle, "Someday, I'll turn that into power." Now, that dream inches toward reality. Westinghouse wins the contract to harness the falls. Using your alternating current design, the world doubts you again. It can't be done, they say. You simply smile. It already has been, you whisper. You visit Niagara as construction begins. The roar drowns every thought, but not yours. You see turbines where others see chaos. Energy where others see waste. You kneel beside the river, dip your hand into the spray, and say quietly, "We are the same." The workers stare, unsure if you're praying or calculating. Probably both. Back in New York, your nights grow stranger. You begin hearing tones in the hum of your machines. Not random, but rhythmic. Like music played by invisible hands. Sometimes, you stop everything to listen. You swear you can hear a message in it, as if the universe is whispering back. You start sleeping less, eating less, thinking more. Your notebooks fill with ideas far ahead of your time. Wireless power, resonant energy, global communication through the Earth's ionosphere. You sketch towers taller than cathedrals, surrounded by lightning that bends at your command. You call them transmitters of harmony. Investors call them madness in copper, but you don't care. One night, while walking along the East River, a storm rolls in. The sky rips open. You stop, arms outstretched, rain soaking through your coat. A bolt strikes the water nearby, turning it white hot for an instant. You whisper, "Talk to me." And for a moment, just a moment, you swear you hear the storm answer. You return to the lab, drenched, trembling, alive. You scribble in your notebook. We are conductors, all of us, somewhere across the city. Edison blows out a candle and mutters, "He'll burn himself alive chasing ghosts." But you know better. You're not chasing ghosts. You're building one. The air tastes of copper and dust inside your new laboratory at East Houston Street. The walls hum faintly. Every wire, every glass tube feels alive. You've stopped calling it a workshop. It's a cathedral now. One where your prayers are measured in volts. The war of currents is over. You've won. But victories, you're learning, don't keep the lights on forever. Your patents with Westinghouse have made the world electric. But they've also nearly bankrupted your partner. When bankers come knocking, you make a decision that historians still call impossible. You tear up your contract, the one that guarantees you millions in royalties, and hand it back. Westinghouse, you say, you have given humanity a great gift. Let it not be weighed down by debt. He stares at you, speechless. You smile faintly, the way only men who know they've just traded fortune for faith can. You walk away lighter, poorer, and more free, at least for a while. Money means little to you now. What you want can't be bought. Resonance, wireless transmission, a world woven together by invisible waves. You start sketching a new dream. A tower that can send power across oceans, messages across the globe, maybe even thoughts through the air. You call it Wardenclyffe. Investors call it impossible. But before that dream can rise, you still have storms to conjure. You begin demonstrating electricity to the public again. Always dramatic, always hypnotic. You let lightning leap from your hands to metal rods, from your body to the floor in blue-white veins. The audience gasps. You smile softly. It's only light, you whisper, behaving as it should. Edison hates you for this. The newspapers call it a war. You see it as a misunderstanding of philosophy. He believes electricity is a product. You believe it's a language. To him, it's business. To you, it's truth. He sponsors the electric chair, powered by your alternating current, as a spectacle of death. The irony isn't lost on you. You attend one of the early demonstrations and leave before it's done, whispering to a friend. They have found a new way to crucify. Historians still argue whether you were more naive or more noble in that war. Some say Edison outmaneuvered you. Others say you refused to play a game that required cruelty. But one fact remains. Your name began to glow brighter than his. Your inventions multiply like stars. The Tesla coil, the oscillator, the wireless lamp. You perform before royalty and scientists alike. In one demonstration, you send electric current through your body and out your fingertips in radiant arcs. A journalist faints. Another calls you the man who commands lightning. You shrug. No, you say. I only ask politely. And yet, behind the showmanship, something else is happening. The line between your thoughts and your machines begins to blur. You start to see patterns everywhere. In raindrops, in Morse code, in the flicker of lamps across the street. You write about signals from the ether. Strange pulses you detect on your instruments late at night. Were they cosmic waves? Random noise? The heartbeat of the earth? Historians still debate it. You just called them voices from beyond. At first, the newspapers laugh. Then they stop laughing when you demonstrate wireless transmission over short distances. Light bulbs flicker to life without wires. Instruments sing across the air. You grin like a child. The earth itself, you say, is an enormous conductor, and yet fame is fickle. Investors begin to tire of your promises. Practical results, they demand. Profit. You stare at them blankly, as though they've asked you to cage the sky. You retreat deeper into solitude. Nights blur into dawns. Meals go uneaten. You speak less, write more. Sometimes, you stand at the center of your lab, surrounded by humming coils, and whisper to the lightning. You ask it the same question you asked the night you were born. Will they ever understand? The storm never answers, but it keeps listening. You stand at the edge of Niagara Falls, mist curling around your coat, the roar so immense it seems to vibrate through your bones. The air is electric, literally, in your case. The turbines are spinning, the dynamos are alive, and your dream, the dream you whispered to a river as a child, has become real. All around you, engineers cheer, cameras flash. The president himself will soon throw the switch that sends alternating current, your current, from Niagara to the glowing city of Buffalo, 20 miles away. It's the first long-distance transmission of electric power in human history. The world has changed. You should be triumphant. Instead, you feel oddly still, like a tuning fork that has finally stopped ringing. You look out over the torrent, whisper, "At last," and the mist seems to nod back. You've proven that energy can be tamed, that the wild heart of nature can hum to human rhythm. Yet a quiet thought gnaws at you. If power can be transmitted anywhere, what happens to those who control it? Historians still argue whether Tesla foresaw the ethical storms of modern industry, the monopolies, the exploitation, the endless hunger for more. Maybe he did. Maybe that's why he always built for beauty, not profit. When the switch is thrown, the crowd roars as Buffalo lights up. Homes, factories, theaters, all illuminated by invisible waves born from falling water. You turn to Westinghouse and say softly, "The future is now in their hands." He smiles. "In yours too, Nikola." You shake your head. "No, I only helped it find its current. After Niagara, fame should have made you invincible, but it doesn't. Investors want patents, not poetry. The press wants headlines, not harmonies. And Edison, ever the showman, never forgives. He calls your wireless dreams fantasies. The public listens to him more than to you. So, you withdraw again to laboratories filled with glowing coils and restless ideas. You begin work on your great experiment, transmitting power without wires. You imagine towers taller than lighthouses, sending energy through the air, lighting the world for free. The first test succeeds briefly. A lamp across the room flickers to life with no wire attached. You laugh, a sound equal parts joy and disbelief. "It works!" you shout. The earth itself is a conductor, but money runs thin. Westinghouse can't keep supporting you forever, and bankers are wary. They want predictable miracles, not cosmic ones. When you pitch them your world wireless system, they stare blankly. J.P. Morgan, cold and sharp as cut glass, finally agrees to fund it, but only for communication, not power. "You'll build me a telegraph tower," he says. You nod, but your eyes are already beyond him, seeing lightning leap across oceans, entire cities glowing without wires. Morgan doesn't notice the storm in your head. Construction begins at Shoreham, Long Island. The Wardenclyffe Tower rises from the ground like a metal tree, 187 feet tall, crowned with a copper dome. Locals call it Tesla's Folly. You call it the first heartbeat of the planet. You work without rest, designing oscillators, tuning coils, measuring resonance frequencies until your fingers tremble. You say strange things to your assistants, that the tower will not just send signals, but power, light, life. When they ask what you mean, you smile faintly. If you listen carefully, you whisper. You can already hear it breathing. But the money runs dry. Morgan refuses to send another cent. "Where's my profit?" he demands. You tell him there will be none, only progress. He walks away, and with him goes the dream. One night, you stand beneath the half-finished tower, lightning flashing over the sea. The copper dome glows faintly with residual charge. You touch it, feel the hum, and murmur, I tried to talk to you. The storm answers with silence. Years later, they'll dismantle the tower for scrap. But tonight, it still stands a skeleton of ambition, humming softly in the dark, like a prayer the sky hasn't yet decided to answer. The tower falls silent. The workers leave. The scaffolds rust under sea salt and rain. What was once your cathedral of light now looms over the Long Island coast like the ribcage of a sleeping god. The newspapers call it Tesla's folly. You call it unfinished music. You walk among the empty coils, fingertips brushing dust that used to shimmer with voltage. Each spark had a sound, a voice, a pulse. Now it's gone. The silence feels heavier than any failure. You tell yourself it's only temporary, that you'll rebuild. But deep down, you sense the pattern shifting. The world has moved on to profit and patents. You were trying to teach it poetry. Historians still argue whether Morgan betrayed you or merely obeyed capitalism's cold arithmetic. You know better. Men like him count wealth in gold. You count it in frequency. His world hums slower than yours. To survive, you take smaller projects, oscillators, turbines, remote control boats. You demonstrate one at Madison Square Garden, guiding a tiny vessel by wireless signal before a stunned crowd. They gasp. Call it witchcraft. Applaud. You smile, thinking, if they only knew what else is possible. But your inventions outpace belief. Each new marvel makes you sound more like a prophet than an engineer. He speaks of transmitting power through the earth, they whisper. Of tapping energy from the sky. Investors vanish. Journalists twist your words into spectacle. Still, you build. You always build. In a rented lab downtown, you resurrect your favorite child, the Tesla coil. It hisses and sings, spewing blue-white fire into the air. The current arcs between metal spheres like divine laughter. You stand in the middle of it, arms out, a conductor in both senses of the word. The room smells of ozone, burnt dust, and victory. One night, a spark leaps farther than expected. It hits a beam, ignites paper, and within minutes, flames devour everything. Your notebooks, your instruments gone. You stand on the street in your nightclothes, watching the fire consume your life's work. Someone asks what you've lost. You say quietly, nothing that can't be rebuilt. You mean it. You move again to Colorado Springs. The air is dry, the sky endless. Here, you build your new laboratory, far from bankers and noise. Locals call you the Lightning Man. You take it as a compliment. Your experiments here defy belief. You drive spikes into the ground, erect enormous coils, and summon lightning from the heavens. Bolts over 100 feet long rip through the night sky, lighting up the plains. The thunder shakes houses miles away. You laugh in the middle of it, hair wild, coat snapping like a flag. You've never looked more alive. You measure the resonance of the earth itself. Claim to detect strange signals, repeating from somewhere far beyond Mars, perhaps. You jot it all down, meticulous and ecstatic. We are not alone, you write. The universe itself is talking. Scientists mock you. The press loves you. You become myth, and yet you're still broke. You wire Westinghouse for help. He sends a small sum enough to keep you fed, not enough to change your fate. You shrug it off, eyes still fixed on the storm. You tell yourself that true genius needs only hunger and hope. The day you leave Colorado, you walk to the tower one last time. The wind howls through its wires like a memory. You place your hand on the wood, whisper, I heard you. Then you turn away. Back in New York, you're older, thinner, but your eyes still burn with that impossible voltage. You rent a small suite in the Waldorf Astoria. You order milk, bread, and 12 clean towels a day. You avoid touching people. You start feeding pigeons in Bryant Park. You tell a reporter, the present is theirs. The future, for which I really work, is mine. He smiles, not realizing you mean it literally. The pigeons come first, a few at the window, then dozens. You start feeding them breadcrumbs from the Waldorf balcony every morning, their wings flashing silver in the dawn light. The city below hums with machines you helped invent, but none of it feels like yours anymore. You prefer the cooing and the flutter, the rhythm of soft feathers instead of typewriters. You're 56 now, thin, elegant, solitary. The newspapers still print your name, but mostly with question marks attached. Is Tesla building a death ray? Can he speak to Mars? Genius or madman? You stop reading them. You already know the answer. You've crossed the border, where brilliance turns to myth, and myths are rarely understood while they're alive. Still, you work, always. Your suite is a workshop. Your nights-long symphonies of whirring motors and scratching pencils. You live on milk, honey, and the occasional cracker. You've given up meat and sleep alike. A mind, you say, must never be burdened by digestion. Historians still argue whether Tesla's eccentricity was illness or evolution. Was he unraveling, or simply tuned to frequencies no one else could hear? You begin to sense patterns again, pulses in the night sky, invisible waves brushing your instruments. You tell a journalist you've received signals from another planet. They laugh, of course. You don't. You describe them precisely repeating intervals, mathematical order. Intelligence, you insist. Perhaps Martian, perhaps something older. The ridicule doesn't sting anymore. It's background noise. You've learned to hear the melody beneath it. One evening, you limp to Bryant Park age, catching up with you, though you refuse to admit it. A pigeon lands on your shoulder, pure white, eyes glowing faintly in the lamplight. You feed her gently. She becomes your favorite, your only friend. You name her nothing at all. She doesn't need a name. When she grows sick, you bring her into your room, make a nest of silk and cotton. You spend nights watching her breathe, her chest rising and falling, like a tiny engine powered by love itself. When she finally dies, you feel something leave you too, as if one of your frequencies has gone silent forever. You tell an interviewer later, I loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman, and she loved me. When she died, something went out of my life. They print it as evidence of madness. They miss the point entirely. Your ideas now drift further from what the world calls possible. You design a particle beam weapon, a teleforce device you claim could end all war. The military listens just enough to worry, then politely forgets. You write letters to governments, to financiers, to anyone who might listen. Most don't. You live off small stipends from friends who can't bear to see you starve. One day, a young engineer visits. He finds you sitting by the window, hair silver, eyes still glowing with that same voltage from the thunderstorm you were born in. Mr. Tesla, he says hesitantly, why do you keep working? The world doesn't understand. You smile faintly. Because the storm still speaks, you reply. And I am not done listening. That night, you return to your notebooks. You sketch the impossible again, towers, waves, light without wires, thought without distance. Outside, lightning flashes faintly over the Hudson. You pause, pen hovering, and whisper, I hear you. The storm, loyal as ever, answers with silence that sounds a lot like peace. The years begin to fold into one another like old blueprints. The ink fading, but the design still there. You move from hotel to hotel now, always under an alias. Always with a trunk full of notebooks and a head full of storms. Your world has shrunk to a few square feet of desk, a window, and the soft hum of New York outside, powered by the very current you once dreamed into being. You should feel proud. you should feel vindicated. Instead, you feel haunted. The light that fills every home, every factory, every street lamp, it's your light, but it no longer belongs to you. The world has taken your dream and stamped other names on it. Edison's lamps, Marconi's radio, Westinghouse's turbines. You gave them the future, and they gave you a footnote. But even forgotten gods still whisper. You start designing again stranger things this time. Machines that vibrate the earth. Oscillators that could, you claim, split buildings apart or heal the sick, depending on how they're tuned. All things, you tell a journalist, have a frequency. Learn to match it, and you can control it. The reporter stares at you, half intrigued, half afraid. You don't mind. Fear is just recognition wearing a cheap disguise. Then comes your most dangerous idea yet, the death ray. You call it Teleforce, a beam of charged particles capable of destroying aircraft miles away. You describe it in detail, equations, magnetics, focusing lenses, all perfectly rational, perfectly terrifying. You insist it's not a weapon, but a deterrent. No one would dare wage war, you write, if every nation possessed such power. Historians still argue whether you ever built it. Some say it was theoretical. Others claim fragments of your notes were real, later seized, quietly, by the government after your death. The truth hums somewhere in between. When World War I breaks out, you watch the headlines with hollow eyes. Cities burn under the glow of bombs, powered by the same energy you once called divine, you whisper. I gave them lightning, and they made it scream. You try to offer your Teleforce plans to end war forever. The War Department thanks you, politely files your letters away. You know they'll never use it for peace. So, you lock the designs in your mind, or perhaps in one of your trunks, the ones you guard so fiercely. The money dwindles, your assistants leave. You sell off what patents remain, just enough to pay hotel bills and pigeon seed. The maids knock softly when bringing your meals. Sometimes you don't answer for days. You spend your nights staring at the city lights through thin curtains, muttering about resonance, radio waves, invisible harmonies only you can hear. One night, during a thunderstorm, you take the elevator down and step into the street. Rain soaks your coat instantly. The lightning flashes, and you raise your arms the way you did as a boy, as if greeting an old friend. Still here, you whisper. For a moment, it feels like the sky replies a blinding flash, a crash so loud it rattles your bones. The street lamp beside you flickers, then steadies. You smile. Good, you say softly. You remember me. Back upstairs, you write a letter to a friend. I am convinced that energy is everywhere. It moves through us, between us, beyond us. Death is only a change in frequency. You seal it, tuck it away, and lie back on the narrow bed. Your notebooks wait beside you, still full of ideas the world isn't ready for. You tell yourself it doesn't matter. The future will catch up eventually. It always does. The next morning, you feed the pigeons again. One lands on your hand, white feathers glowing faintly in the morning light. You smile. I built towers, you whisper. But you're still the better messenger, the bird coos. The sky stays silent. But somehow, you feel heard. The world outside grows louder, faster, brighter, all powered by the very forces you once tried to teach it to respect. Neon signs flicker through the New York night. Elevators hum. Radios chatter in every cafe. Everyone is surrounded by invisible waves now, but no one seems to notice the miracle. You smile at the irony. Humanity has become addicted to electricity and somehow forgotten its profit. You spend your days at the New Yorker Hotel, room 3327. The staff knows you by sight, but not by name. You shuffle through the lobby in a neatly pressed suit. feeding crumbs to pigeons that wait by the door. The doorman calls you professor. You nod, neither confirming nor denying it. Inside your room, the curtains are always drawn. You live among stacks of papers, folded napkins covered in equations, letters to governments that will never reply. On the bedside table sits a cracked photograph of Niagara Falls, your cathedral, your masterpiece. You stare at it sometimes, whispering, still running. At 75, your mind is sharper than ever, painfully sharp. You calculate in your head, sketch circuits that might never exist, and send polite letters to the Red Cross, warning that strange vibrations may one day shake the earth. They thank you, then file it away under eccentric correspondence. You begin to notice patterns again, repeating numbers, flashes of light when no bulb burns. The way street lamps seem to pulse in rhythm with your heartbeat. You take it as confirmation. The universe is still communicating. Most men would call it hallucination. You call it resonance. Historians still debate whether Tesla's late experiments crossed into mysticism or remained pure science. But if you listen closely to your own voice, it's clear you never saw a boundary between the two. To you, physics was prayer, and electricity was faith made visible. One evening, a reporter visits, asking for an interview. You sit him down, hands folded neatly. He asks, "Mr. Tesla, what is the greatest discovery of your life?" You smile gently. That energy and matter are one. That the universe is not empty, it is alive. He laughs awkwardly. You don't, you continue. All beings vibrate. To understand the universe, one must understand vibration. The young man nods, pretending to understand, and leaves. Years later, physicists will discover quantum fields that hum exactly as you described. They will call it revolutionary. You will not be there to say, "I told you so." Your days grow quieter. The hotel maids know not to disturb you. You rise at 3 a.m., nap at 9 p.m., and eat the same meal every day. A bowl of warm milk, some honey, a single egg. You say you can think only when the body is light. At night, you sit by the window, the city lights flickering below like a constellation of tame lightning. You talk softly to the pigeons outside, especially the white one, or maybe just her memory. "You see?" you whisper. "They made the whole world glow, but they still can't hear the song." Sometimes, in the distance, a thunderstorm rolls over the Hudson. You rise slowly, lean your head against the cold glass, and close your eyes. The low rumble echoes through your chest, ancient and familiar. You imagine the clouds murmuring back in the language you've always understood. "Still listening," you whisper. Your notebooks fill with sketches of a new machine, one that could restore balance to the Earth's frequencies. You describe it as a transmitter of peace. No one funds it, but you don't care. The design itself feels like prayer. One morning, as the city wakes, you write in the margin of a page, "There is no energy in matter other than that received from the environment." Years later, Einstein will say nearly the same thing. You smile, as if you've overheard an echo. The world has moved on, but your storm still hums quiet now, low and eternal, like thunder too far away to frighten anyone anymore. The snow falls softly over Manhattan, fine, deliberate, like static. You watch it from the window of room 3327, the same window you've watched for years. Each flake reminds you of an electron, small, identical, infinitely capable. You think about how even snow obeys the laws of resonance, descending in waves and silence. The world outside feels electric, but not alive. You know the difference. Your health fades, though you refuse to admit it. You walk slower now. Your once proud frame stooped under an invisible weight. Your eyes, still sharp and blue, betray nothing. You've begun to speak less, as though language itself has become too crude for the thoughts you carry. Every few weeks, The hotel staff leaves envelopes of cash, courtesy of your former colleagues, admirers, even distant kings. They know you'd never accept charity, so they disguise it as research support. You thank no one, spend it mostly on birdseed. You still write, still calculate. In your notebooks, you sketch a machine that could amplify the Earth's heartbeat, transferring energy without loss. You believe it could end famine, poverty, even war if only someone would build it. But no one calls. No one visits. Historians still debate whether Tesla's final notebooks contained working designs or the ramblings of a mind collapsing under isolation. Perhaps both. Even the line between brilliance and delirium obeys its own oscillation. You dream more often now. Dreams of rivers turning to light, of towers rising again, of the hum that connects all living things. Sometimes, you wake certain you've heard a voice calling your name, not from the hallway, but from the ether. You whisper back, "Still here." Your reflection in the window looks almost ghostly now. You chuckle softly. "All conductors fade," you tell it. Even lightning must return to the ground. One evening, the concierge knocks gently and hands you an envelope from the Yugoslav government. Inside, a medal. They call you a national hero. You set it beside your bed without opening the note. Medals are for wars won. You only ever fought silence. Later, lying awake, you remember the moment of your birth, the thunderstorm, your mother's trembling voice. "A child of light," she said. You smile. She was right, though not in the way she meant. You never brought light to the world. You simply reminded it that it already had some. In your final winter, you begin to fade from memory even before you fade from life. The journalists who once begged for interviews now chase stories about atom bombs and rockets. You see your ideas reappear in headlines under other names. Radar, remote control, wireless communication. Each one like a child who's forgotten its parent. But you don't mind, truly. You once said, "The gift of mental power comes from God, divine being." And if we concentrate our minds on that truth, we become in tune with this great power. You still believe it. You write one last letter shaky, almost illegible to a friend back home. The work was not mine alone. The thunder still sings through us all. Someday, they will hear it clearly. You seal the envelope. You don't send it. That night, lightning flickers faintly beyond the clouds, painting the walls of your room with soft, trembling light. You sit in your chair, eyes half closed, whispering numbers under your breath, the same equations that once built empires of light. You fall asleep like that, upright, serene, as if waiting for the next frequency. The storm never arrives, but perhaps it doesn't need to. You've already become one. Morning creeps softly into the narrow room, pale winter light filtering through the thin curtains, tracing faint lines across the papers that fill your desk. The city hums far below, unaware that something extraordinary has gone still. The maid knocks once, twice, then opens the door. You're sitting in the chair by the window, as always. But this time, your hands rest motionless on your lap. The world's greatest conductor has gone quiet. The air smells faintly of ozone, as if the universe itself held its breath in tribute. It's January 7th, 1943. You're 86 years old. The newspapers will get the details wrong, they always do. They'll call you the eccentric inventor, the forgotten genius, the man who dreamed too far. They'll list your achievements, the alternating current, the coils, the motors, the countless patents, but none of them will mention the silence that followed each invention, that soft moment when the world caught its breath before realizing it had changed forever. Historians will argue over your last years. the pigeons, the death rays, the unpaid bills. Some will say you died poor and mad. Others will call you a saint of science, too good for commerce, too strange for comfort. But neither gets it right. You didn't die poor. You died spent, every volt, every spark, every frequency given back to the sky. When the government comes for your things, they'll pack up your notebooks, trunks full of scribbled equations, sketches of impossible machines, fragments of genius wrapped in dust. Agents from the Office of Alien Property will label them classified. For years, no one will know what they contained. Some say they were lost, others that they were studied in secret, fueling technologies decades ahead of their time. But none of that matters to you now, because somewhere in the echo between storms, something eternal hums. The city glows outside your window. Every light bulb, every motor, every whisper of current, a quiet continuation of your life. You once said, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries. That prophecy still hovers, waiting. They'll bury your ashes in New York, far from Smiljan, far from the thunderstorm that announced you. But the storm remembers. Somewhere over the Atlantic, lightning forks across the clouds, just as it did that night in 1856. A bright, silent flash, as if the sky itself is whispering your name. And maybe, if you listen closely enough, you can hear it. Not thunder, not applause, just harmony, the hum between all things. The frequency of truth, love, and light. You, the man who tried to talk to lightning, finally became its language. And now, as the lights dim and the hum fades, you sit quietly for a moment. You think about what you've just heard, the rise and fall of a man who gave the world its glow and asked for nothing in return. Nikola Tesla's life wasn't about invention. Not really. It was about listening to the storm, to silence, to the pulse of something greater than himself. Imagine him there, still, hair wild, eyes bright, whispering to the night sky like it's an old friend. He didn't seek fame or fortune or even recognition. He sought understanding. He believed that everything, every sound, every spark, every heartbeat was part of one vast and beautiful equation. Maybe he was right. Maybe the lightning he tried to speak to has been speaking through us ever since, in the hum of power lines, in the flicker of screens, in the rhythm of the world that never truly sleeps. So as you close your eyes tonight, think of that hum, soft, steady, ancient. The same hum that began the moment you were born, that moves through everything alive. You don't need to be a genius to hear it. You just need to be quiet. The light you see when you open your eyes tomorrow, that's his gift. The silence that follows, that's his legacy. Good night. Sweet dreams.